So if I search for services, I'll go ahead and type in social media. It will register the value that's been sent through. And you can see now that it has identified the parameter of the query that we've sent through as social media. Hello, my name is Lachlan Kirkwood, and today I'll be teaching you how to build a freelance marketplace like Fiverr entirely out of no code using Bubble. Bubble's by far one of my favorite no-code tools, as it gives you complete control over your own custom database and front-end design of your application. For those of you who don't know me, I've spent the past year working with the Bubble team to create the How-To blog series. This series took a list of the most popular products out there on the market, such as Airbnb, Uber, and Instagram, and explained the step-by-step process to rebuilding them with no code using Bubble's tool. Throughout this tutorial, I'll be walking you through the exact process to rebuild your own application like Fiverr without touching a single line of code. This will include features like creating user accounts, being able to list your own services on the platform, creating a homepage and a search bar where users can search for these services, displaying a profile for each creator across the platform, designing a product page to display the full information of a service, a feature to process payments once a user decides to purchase the service, and finally, an option to leave a review after a user's actually experienced that service. So grab your Bubble editor and let's dive right into it. Now, the first feature we'll be building in this tutorial isn't actually a core feature itself. Instead, we'll be taking the time to go ahead and configure our Bubble database. And the reason we'll be doing that is because we first need to set up the right infrastructure in order to then go ahead and build out the rest of these features that rely on that. So in my Notion doc, I've added in a list of the different data types and fields within them, and I'll explain these as I go through and add them into my database. So if we head over into our Bubble editor, we'll head into the data tab, and you can see that the user data type already exists within an editor as that comes pre-built through Bubble itself. What we'll need to do then is go ahead and add in the different data types first before we then expand out the data fields that lie within those. So as you saw in my Notion doc before, there was a data type for product and also a data type for reviews. Now within these, we can go ahead and start adding in the data fields within those. And the first one we'll be adding is the user data type. So again, back in my Notion doc, I'll start adding in these data fields such as the name, the bio, the skills of a user, and also their profile photo. So we'll head over into the Bubble editor again and start adding in the name, which will be a simple text field, a user's bio, which is another text field, a user's profile photo, which will be an image field, a user's skills, which will be a text field, although this text field will be a field with multiple entries because a user can have multiple skills that they service for. And then I'll also want to register a user's profile type. Now, I'll be adding this field in so we can differentiate between who is a seller on the platform and who is a buyer. And I'll be doing this just through a text type field here. And this won't be a field with multiple entries, so I'll create that. And from here, I'll then be adding in a list of the products purchased. Because once a user purchases a product, I'll be wanting to add that to their personal profile. So I'll then go ahead and select this field type to be a product, and this will be able to link to the product data type that we've added and all the fields within each product. And this will in fact be a field with multiple entries. And then finally, we'll be adding in a data field for reviews. And once again, we'll be linking this to our reviews data type. And of course, this will be a field with multiple entries because a user can receive multiple reviews from different people who have used their services. Now, if we look in our Notion doc, we'll be going ahead and adding in the data fields for the product data type. So this will include the category, description, a featured image for the product, the price, and also the title of the product as well. Back in our Bubble editor, we'll start by adding in the title of the product, which is a text field. Next will be the category of the product, which will also be a text field. Then there'll be a description of this product, which again will be another text field. Then we'll add in a featured image, which, as you guessed, will be an image data field. And then finally a price field, which will be a numerical value. Then once we've added in our product data fields, the last one we'll be doing is our reviews. And if we look in my Notion doc here, we'll be adding the content of a review, a rating for the review, and also a seller or user in this case that is linked to. So first up, we'll add in our content of the review, which will be a text field. Then a rating of the review, which will be a number field. And then also the seller who the review has been written against. And this will be a user field. And this won't have multiple entries because one review will be written against one particular user or seller on our platform. So there we have it. You can see how easy it is to build out your own custom database using Bubble's no-code tool. And what I love about it, as I mentioned before, is the ability to integrate different data types across each other. So as I mentioned before, how we'll be linking all of the existing products that a single user has purchased. You'll see how that can come into play later on in this tutorial when we start to build out a user's profile. Once we've added in all of the data fields and types, I'm just going to go ahead and tick those off in my Notion doc here, and then we can start to build out the core features of the product itself. Now that we've finished configuring our database, the next feature we'll be adding is a little bit more housekeeping, and that is by creating a page that can register new user accounts to our platform. So we'll head over into our Bubble editor, and what we'll do is create a new page entirely here, and we'll call this page Register. Once this page is created, I'm just going to update the background color to a light gray color, just in case I want to add any white elements to the page. I want to be able to see where the constraints of the page are. And then we can start to build out the page. Now in Bubble, there are two ways to be able to register accounts. There's this way I'll be showing you, and I'll give you a good explanation on how to do that in a moment. But there's also the method of using Bubble's reusable login sign up element. Now, if you head to the drop down menu in the top left, you can actually click on the sign up login pop up element. And this can be used later on throughout our product whenever we need to call upon a pop-up to register users. So essentially this has all of the input fields to register a user's email and password. And by all means, you can update these elements on this page by adding an additional input or changing the text. But what I love about this reusable element is that it comes with all of your workflows needed built into it already. So for instance, there's a workflow here that shows when a user's forgotten their password. There's one that allows a user to log in if they have an existing account. And finally, there's the option to sign a user up if they don't have an existing account. Now, this pop-up is quite useful when you want to display it on top of an existing page. Whereas in this case, I'm going to be creating a dedicated page to register a user account because I might want a user to land on this as soon as they hit the platform. So what we'll do is start by adding in a text element onto our page, and we'll call this just register account. And I'm not going to be focusing too much on the actual design of my product here. My goal here today is to help you build just a functional product. But I would recommend later on after this tutorial, if you wanted to go ahead and start creating your own custom styles to make the interface a bit more enticing, you can go ahead and do that. In this case, I'm just going to select from Bubble's pre-built styles. So I'll just choose a H2 heading here. I'm just going to roughly center this. And then below that, I'll add in a text element that just says name. Again, I'm going to choose a H2 style font. And then below this, I'm going to add in our first input field. Now, this input field will be used to register a user's name. So I'm going to update the name of this input to name. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this because we'll be using more input fields throughout this page. The next input field will want to register a user's email. I'll update the name of this input to email. I'll then duplicate this again. And the next input field will want to register a user's password. So I'll update this text to password. and also update the name of the input field to be password. And one thing I'll note at this point is that we'll need to update the content format for each of these input fields here. So in order for this to register as a password within our database, we will need to go and update the content format, and we'll update this to be a password. And then for our email, we'll need to do the same, update the content format to register as an email. And our name input field can remain as a text element. And finally, I'm going to add in a drop-down menu to be able to differentiate between the type of user account that a user is registering. So I'll update this to be drop-down account type. And the reason I'm going to want to differentiate between the account types is because I'm going to want to know if when a user registers, if they're interested in becoming a seller or someone who's just looking to purchase services on the platform. So I can add in two static choices here, which is the default setting for the style of this element. And the first option I'm going to add is I'm interested in selling products. Then by adding in a separate line, it automatically adds in a different drop-down field that they can select from. So I'll be adding in another field that says I'm looking to purchase products. And then I'll just copy this text element and just have this say account type. I'll make this a little larger. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and add a button under this, which will just say register. And from here, now that we have all our on-page input fields, we can go ahead and actually create a workflow to register a user's account when this register button is selected. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start Edit Workflow. Within this workflow, I'm going to choose from our account action, and I'm going to select to sign the user up. Now from here, it'll prompt you to match the email and password data fields with the on-page elements that we've already added to our registration page. So we'll match the input email that we've created with the email form, and we'll select the email's value. And then we'll go ahead and do the same for our password input field, and we'll select the password input field's value to store that data within our database. And then from here, you can also add in additional field types if you would like. So remember how we added in the user's name field as an input? We'll select to add in that through the user's name data field that we added in our previous module. So we'll select the input field's name, its value, and that will be matched with the name value in our database. And finally, there was the profile type that I mentioned with that drop-down menu. So we'll select the profile type equals the value of our drop-down element that we've added from there. Now you can see that we haven't actually added in the user's bio or their profile photo. And the reason I haven't done this is because later on in this tutorial, we'll be creating a dedicated settings page that allows a user to do this on our platform. But after this, what we'll want to do, a user has registered their account, everything is good and well. We'll want to then redirect them to a home page, just so they don't stay stagnant on the same page that they've just used. So we'll go ahead into our pages here and create a new page. We'll just call this home. And at this point, we're not going to add anything onto this page at all. I've simply just created a blank page so that I can reference it within a workflow. So if we head back to our registration page, we'll click on that workflow that we've just created. So after a user has signed up an account, what we'll want to do is redirect them to our home page. So we'll select from a navigation event, select go to page, add the destination page as our home page. And we don't need to send any data through this workflow yet. I'll explain that later on in use cases when that's needed. But there is one last thing we'll want to do, and that is create a workflow that registers if a user already has an account, because we don't want them to land on this page that encourages them to register another account if they're already logged into an existing account. So what we'll do is head over to our workflow editor one last time, and we're going to create a separate workflow here. And we're going to prompt this workflow to trigger every time the page is loaded. And from here, we're going to add a condition to this workflow that only allows it to run when the current user is already logged in. So if a current user is logged in and somehow they click on the registration page We won't want them to be there, so we're going to create a navigation event and again redirect them over to our home page. And we won't be sending any data with that, as I mentioned before. So now a user heads over, they're already logged in, they head over to this registration page. It'll automatically quickly redirect them back to the home page just to create a bit more of a seamless user experience. And if a user doesn't have an account, what we'll allow them to do is add in all of their necessary data when registering an account. They'll select that, it will create a new account for them, and then it will redirect them to our homepage where they can start to use our product. And we'll take a quick look at what this user experience looks like. So we'll go ahead and preview our application in its development environment. And I'll go ahead and start to add in my input fields. So my name, Lachlan Kirkwood. My email, I'll just say test@gmail.com. It'll register when that's a proper email address. My password, I'll just add a generic password there. And I'll choose from my account type, which says that I'm interested in selling products. I'll register my account, and you can see that that workflow is running. It's saving those data fields. And now you can see it's redirected me to my homepage that I've created. I obviously don't have any content on this page, so this page will be blank. And then back in my Notion doc, I'm going to tick off that I have, in fact, created the feature to register a user account to identify the difference between a seller on our platform and someone looking for services. And then also added in that last redirect to our homepage once a user has registered an account. Once our users have registered accounts, what we'll be doing next is building out a settings page, which allows our users to add in any additional information to their profiles and also update this information if anything changes. So let's jump on over into our Bubble editor and create another new page, and we'll call this page settings. Now on this page again, I'm just going to update the color of the background, and I'm going to add in a text element that just says settings. I'll update this to be a H2 and just roughly center this in the middle horizontally. And from here, it's going to be much the same process as creating our user registration page. In fact, I can also go back to our registration page and copy across some of the elements, such as the name, the account type, and I'll paste those back on our settings page because we can be reusing these elements throughout this page as well. So what we'll need to do is add in the rest of the data fields within our users page, which I have back in our Notion doc here. So we'll be adding an option for them to update their name, their bio, their skills, their profile photo, and also their profile type. So let's jump back into our editor and start to add in those fields. So I'm going to duplicate this title, and this will be called a bio. And instead of using a single line input element, I'm going to use a multi-line input field for this input because a user's bio can sometimes be longer than just a single line. They might want to include more information. So I'll update the name of this multi-line input to be called bio. And with multi-line inputs, what I love about them is that if a user fills up this information, it will automatically expand downwards. So you can make it just the same size as a single line input, and it will provide the space for users to add in as much text as they would like. Next, I'll add in support for a user to include a profile photo on their page. So I'll call this photo. And then I'll add in a image uploader element. I'll also just move these down. And I'll just call this picture uploader a profile photo. And then below that, before our account type, I'm going to need to add in an option that allows a user to create a list of the skills that they have for their profile. And instead of just using a drop-down menu for this, which allows a user to select only one given option, I'm going to need to use a special element, which is called a multi-selector field. And to enable this, you're going to need to head into our Bubble plugins tab here. select to add a new plugin, and you can search for the phrase multi and then scroll down to our multi-select dropdown, and this is a free plugin, so we'll go ahead and install that. Then back in our design tab, you'll see that this is now sitting under our input forms. So we will go and add in a multi-select input field. And from here, you can add in multiple static choices, much the same as our drop-down option, only users will be able to select multiple options at a time. So in this case, I'll add fields like social media marketing, SEO, content marketing, and I'm just going to copy this title here, move this account type option down, and update this title to just say skills. I'll then move the account type back up. And then finally, we'll just add in another button element, which will allow a user to actually update their settings. So we'll call that update. Now that we have all of our necessary input fields to fill out the rest of a user's profile, we'll go ahead and update the actual data fields within our database. So let's select to create a new workflow when our update button is selected. And instead of actually creating a new user account, we're going to head over to our data action and make changes to a thing. And the thing we'll want to be changing is, of course, the current user who is updating their settings. So much the same as registering a user account, we'll go ahead and just match all of the data fields on our page with the data fields in our database. So we'll start with the user's name. We'll select from our input name field, choose its value. We'll then add the user's bio, match that with our multi-line input value, our profile photo, match that with our picture uploader's value, the profile type, we will match that with the drop-down value for the account type. And then for our profile skills, because this is a list of text, we'll be in fact adding to this list. And we'll be adding in the multi-selectors values that have been selected. Now, once a user's profile has been updated, what we'll need to do is just create a bit of a user experience that prompts that it has been successful and all that new information has been stored. So we'll go in and choose a text element here. And I'm just going to call this updated. And I'll change the style of this to be a H2 again. I'll add this under our update button, and I'm going to want this text to momentarily display once a user has updated their settings. So to begin with, what we're going to do is unselect that this element is visible on page load, because again, it will only be displayed once this button has been clicked and a user's account settings have been successfully updated. The next thing we'll do is head back into our workflow editor, and after a user has made changes to their account, we're going to add in another step, and this will be an element action. And in this case, we're going to want to animate a element. The element will be the text that says updated, and then we can choose an animation to show. I'm just going to choose transition fade in. And then I'll just define a custom duration of 500 milliseconds. And now whenever a user updates their account, which I'll show you in a moment, that text will display, allowing them to just see that any changes have been successful. One of the last things we'll need to do to our settings page is add in any initial content to our input fields. So let's say a user has taken the time to go through and add in all of their profile information, and they've selected update. What we'll want to do is actually store that information within these input fields so they can see what the current values are set as, which will allow them to determine what they'd like to go ahead and potentially change. So under the initial content field, we can insert dynamic data from our database to actually store those values in those fields anytime this page is loaded. So the content we'll want to display is the current user's name for the name input field. We'll go ahead into our bio and add in the current user's bio. Then our profile photo will insert a dynamic image, which will of course be the current user's profile photo. And the skills under default value will include the current user's skills. And the account type for the default value will again include the current user's profile type. Then finally, the last thing we're going to want to do to this page is just create another redirect like we did in our last module, just in case a user isn't logged in and they somehow get a URL to go to our settings page, because in that circumstance, this page would just be completely blank. So we're going to want to create a bit of a nice user experience there. So head over to our workflow menu, create a new workflow. Under our general tab, we'll just select when the page is loaded. And the condition to this workflow will register when the current user isn't logged in. And if a user isn't logged in, we're going to create a navigation event. We'll select that they need to go to a page, and that page will be our home page. And again, we will not be sending any data with this. So that is the final workflow we'll be adding to our settings page, and we can go ahead and preview this now. And you'll see on my page from the account that I've created before, it is now displaying the initial content of the name that I registered, also the profile type that I registered before. And I can go ahead and update any of these changes here. So I can call my name Lachlan Kirkwood 2. We'll add in a bio that just says, I love building with Bubble. I'll add in a profile photo, and then I can select from my skills. So let's say social media marketing, content marketing, but not SEO. And my profile type, I'll keep the same, as I am interested in selling products. And then when I select the update button, it will go ahead and display that I have in fact updated that information. Now, if I go ahead and refresh this page, you can see that it is still storing all of this information within my profile, which is exactly the experience that I wanted before. So now back in my Notion doc, I'm going to tick off that I have created my settings page. I've displayed a success message once the input fields were updated. I've displayed the initial content that pulls out the existing data fields of a user's profile information, and I've created a redirect if a user is not logged in. Now that we've taken care of most of the housekeeping of our build, we can go ahead and actually start to build our first really core feature to our Fiverr marketplace, and that is actually the ability to create a new product. That's something I wanted to cover before we even touch our homepage, because I'd like to show the process of how to actually add something to a platform, pretty much from a admin's dashboard. And in this case, this dashboard will be users who are listed as sellers on our marketplace. So let's head into our Bubble editor and select to create a new page. This page I'm going to call create, and I will create that page. And as always, I'm just going to update the color of the background there. And I will add in a title to this page that just says add new product. I'll update this to a H2. I will roughly center that. And similar to our settings page and registration page that we've just added before, I'm going to go ahead and add in a bunch of different input fields just so we can register the data within a new product whenever it's created. So the first thing I'm going to want to add is a product title. It's a H2 so the text is a bit clearer. I'll add in a single line input field, and I'll update this to be called product title. Below this, I'm going to duplicate that text. I'm going to call this product description. Then below this, I'm going to add in a multi-line input because a description could be as long as a user wants. Update this to be description. And then from here, I'll add in a drop-down menu, which allows a user to select a category. Now, I'm going to be adding categories as static choices here, and categories across Fiverr could be things like web development, social media marketing, voiceovers. You can add as many as you want in that drop-down menu there. And I'm just going to go and then add the text above that just says category. Down a bit. I'll then go ahead and add in text for a featured image. and select a picture uploader element. I'll make that a little larger because the featured image is, I guess, the main appeal of the product when you see it on the homepage. I'll update the name of this to be featured image. And then finally, the last field I will add is just an option to list a price of the product. So let's say price. I'll just copy my single input field here. Make that down. Make that a bit smaller. And update the name of this to be listed as a price. And we'll be updating the price field to be a currency in this case. Then, similar to the rest of our workflows we've created, I'm going to add in a button below these fields. And this will just say list product. And I'll go ahead and create a new workflow. Now within this workflow, we will once again be selecting from our data actions, only this time we're not going to be making changes to a thing, we're going to be creating a new thing. And the thing we're going to be creating is a product. And then once again, we're going to go ahead and just match all of the data fields with our input fields that we've added to our page. So I'll start with the title, is the product title's value. The description is the description's value from the multi-line input field. The featured image is the picture uploader's value. The category is the drop-down's value. And then the price field will be the value of our input price. Now, once a product has actually been created within our database, you have two options as to what you could do. Similar to our settings page, you could just display a success message that prompts a user that the product has been listed, or you could add an option in your workflow to redirect a user to a page, and that page could either be the home page or their profile page. In this case, I wouldn't mind sending a user to their user profile page. So I'm going to go ahead and just add in a new page here, and I'm going to call it profile. I'll create that. While I'm here, I'm just going to go and update the color of the background. And the other thing I'm going to want to do is update the type of content of this page to be a user, because we're going to be displaying users on this page specifically. Then we'll head back into our create page, jump on over to our workflow editor, and we'll update the destination page to be the profile page, and the data we'll be sending with it is the current user themselves. So that way a user will be able to see their own profile, which will of course display the product that they have just created on that profile as well. Finally, the last thing I'm going to want to do on this page is, once again, just create a redirect that sends a user who isn't listed as a seller on our marketplace back to our home page, because they shouldn't have access to be able to add new products if their profile type doesn't allow it. So we'll go into our workflow editor and once again create an action when the page is loaded. And on here, we'll be adding in a condition that registers when the current user's profile type is, and then we'll be manually adding in the text itself. And what I just want to point out is that this text is case sensitive. So we need to go to our initial drop-down menu that a user has selected from with their account type. And we're going to need to copy this text over so it matches the exact profile type that a user selected. So in this case, we're going to copy when a user has selected that they're looking to purchase products, not sell products. And then on our create page, jump back into the workflow editor and head back into our condition. So when a user's profile type is, and then we'll paste in that value, this workflow will run. And we're going to then send a user to the home page, and we won't need to send any data with it. So let's go ahead and preview what this whole experience looks like within our application. So on our create page, I'm going to go in and add a product title, which will be called Bubble No Code Building. I'll add a description, which just says, I'll teach you how to build a Bubble app. I'll choose from a category, which I'll just go with web development here. I'll upload a featured image. And then I'll add a price, which is $99 for this product, and it'll display a preview of my featured image. I'll select to list this product, and you'll see that it's creating the product, and then it's redirecting me to my profile here, and this has my unique profile URL string to it. But let's say I've gone ahead and then I've updated my profile account type, or when I've registered, I've listed my account type that I'm looking to purchase products. So if I update this type, it's mentioned that it's updated. I'll then go back into our Bubble editor to our create product page. I'll select preview here. It'll start to load the create page, and then you'll notice that it's redirected me to my home page, because once again, my profile hasn't been set up with permission to be able to create products, only to purchase products in this instance. And there we have it. Back in my Notion doc, I'm going to tick off that I have built out a function to create new products, and I've also just added in a redirect that recognizes when I'm not listed as a seller on the platform. Once we've added the feature to create new products across our marketplace, we can finally go ahead and build out our homepage to display a list of all the products across our platform. So let's jump over into our Bubble editor, and we'll head over to our homepage, which we have already created. I'm just going to update the background color of this to a light gray as always. And then from here, we can start to build out what our homepage will look like. Now, the first thing we're going to want to do on our homepage is add in a list of products across our platform that users can choose to purchase. And we'll be doing this by utilizing Bubble's repeating group element. Repeating groups are by far one of my favorite Bubble elements, and what they allow you to do is display a list of items dynamically from your database. And what I mean by that is, as you can see, it is a grid with multiple groups inside of it. And what you can do is configure this to display a particular type of thing within your product. So in this case, we'll want to display a list of products that our sellers have created. And then we can add in a data source, which allows us to pull specific products to display. And in this case, what we can do is update this to search for all of the products within our marketplace. So right now it's going to display a list of every single product that has been uploaded to our platform. Now we'll update that in a moment, so I will come back to that. But what we can also do is update the style of this repeating group. So for instance, I can update this to display one row, and I might want it to display 3 columns, or maybe 4 in this instance, just so we can then expand this as a horizontal option of choices. I will then update the size of that. I'll center this horizontally. And then I can go ahead and start to add in particular elements that I want to display within each repeating group. Now, as I mentioned, each one of these grids will be an individual product. So I'm going to want to display some information about each of these products. The first thing I'm going to want to display is the image of each product. And what you'll see here within a repeating group when I insert the dynamic data is that once I add an option into the first column, it will automatically go ahead and populate the rest of the columns and also pull in the dynamic data that they are required to show. So I'll add in some dynamic data here, and I'm going to select to display the current sales product, so the product of each grid. I'm going to want to display its featured image. Now I'm just going to go and move that over to the side so I can make this image a little bit bigger. And you can now see that it has populated the rest of our repeating group. Below this, I will then want to display the title of the actual product that we're showing. So it could be the current sales title. And I'll just update this to be a section heading so the text is a little bit larger. And then below this, I'll go ahead and add in the information of the person who's actually created this product. So when a user creates a product in our platform, it will automatically tie that information to the product itself. So you don't need to do any additional workflows or any database changes to store that. And from our previous workflows we've created, this will automatically be set up for you. So once again, I'm going to select to add another image element. I'm going to make a small image here. I'm going to insert dynamic data that displays the current product's creators. So that's the seller who has listed this product. I'm going to display their profile photo. And then beside that, I'm going to add in some text which displays their actual name. So once again, I'll insert dynamic data from the current seller's products, the creator of this product, their name. And finally, I'm going to want to add in the price of the product itself. So I'll add in another text element. I will need to remove any content within this in order to add in a $sign. And then I will insert dynamic data from the current sales products price. I'll also go ahead and update this to a H2 just so it's a bit more recognizable. And once we've added that in, you can start to see that our homepage is very slowly coming together as we can finally start to display products that have been listed on our platform. Now, if you've got more than 3 products listed on your platform, you can scroll horizontally across within this repeating group. Or what we can do is also add in another row. And what this will do is, once I expand it, you'll be able to see that it adds in an option to create 2 different rows of repeating groups. So that's a list of 3 products. This is a list of 3 products, just so you can expand out how many products you can display on one page. For the sake of this tutorial though, I'm just going to revert these changes because what I'm actually going to want to do is break these lists of products into different categories across our homepage. So I'll add in a text element here. And first I'm going to display this as the web development category. I'll update this to be a H2 so the font is a bit more recognizable. And then what I'm going to want to do is only actually display the products that match the same category of web development. So if I go into our repeating group here, I can update the data source of it, and I can add in a constraint that not only just searches for every product on our platform now, but also searches for only the products where the category equals, and then I'll type in web development. And again, you'll just need to be cautious that because we're storing the static option in our drop-down menu, this will also need to be case sensitive. Now, if you'd like to add in additional categories to your homepage, you can simply copy and paste this repeating group here, add that below. I'll just expand that text out. And then I will add in voiceovers. That was another category that we were storing. And then again, go into the data source of our repeating group where we're searching for products. And we'll update the category here to be voiceovers. Now, once we've started to display our featured categories on our homepage, there is one last feature we're going to need to add, and that is a search bar function. So although we've added in these list of featured categories, a user might want to search for a particular category type or even a product title that isn't featured on our homepage. So what we'll need to do is add in a function that allows a user to type in a query for a product and then be redirected to a page that displays a list of products that match that specific query or service that they're after. So at the top of our homepage, I'm going to add in an input field here, not a search box, and I'll explain why in a moment, but I'll add in my input field up at the top. I'll add in a placeholder that says find services. And then what we'll need to do is go ahead and create a workflow for this input field that actually redirects us to a separate page, which in this case will be our search results page. And it will need to send through the value of the text within this input field. So we'll go ahead and create a new page. We'll call this search results. We'll create that. And I won't be doing anything on this page except for just updating the background color. And then back on our homepage, I'm going to need to create a workflow that registers when the value of this search bar has been changed. So I'll head over to our workflow editor. So within this workflow, what we'll do is create a trigger when an element's value is changed. And the value has already defaulted to the input search bar that we've added. And then within this workflow, what we'll want to do is go ahead and select a navigation event, and we'll be sending a user to a page. That page will of course be our search results page. And we won't be sending any specific data within that page, although what we will want to do is send a parameter within this workflow. So if we tick that we want to send a page parameter, we can add in a new parameter, and we'll call this parameter query because that'll be someone performing a query within our search input field. And then what we'll do is add in a value for this query to be the same value as the input field. So now let's say a user is searching for social media. It will then send through social media as the query within that URL. So let's go ahead and preview what this homepage now looks like in our Bubble development environment. As you can see on our homepage, it has the existing product that we created before for my no-code building service. It displays the product's featured image, the title, my profile photo, my profile name, and also the price of this service or product itself. And under the voiceovers category, you can see that there's currently no content in that, so it isn't pulling any data at the moment to display. From here as well, we can go into our search bar and type in a particular service that we're looking for. So let's say I want to search for social media services. I'll enter that. It's changed the value of that input field, which then triggers our workflow. So as you can see, it sent us through to our search results page here. And it's also added the query value that we've added, and that includes the query that the users just searched for, which in this case is social media. And when we build out our actual search results page, I'll explain exactly how that works and how we can pull this data from our query to display dynamic content on this page. And just like that, we've finished creating a basic structure of our homepage in order to display products by their categories and also include a search bar that allows users to perform custom queries. And that is all I have time for in this tutorial today. If you wanted to check out the rest of the course, I'd recommend clicking the link in the description below and purchasing the full course. Throughout this, I'll be walking you through the step-by-step instructions to complete the rest of our build. You can also get access to a suite of Bubble tutorials where you'll learn how to rebuild other popular products. If you'd like to also get started learning how to build some other popular products, I'll include some suggested videos in a moment that you can also check out. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to hit that subscribe button if you'd like to see any more helpful tutorials like this to help you on your Bubble journey.